If you are lying here tonight feeling overwhelmed by the sheer unpredictability of your life, this is for you. Stay with me. The world outside your window is an open system. It has no edges, no guaranteed outcomes, and no predictable borders. Every day, you step into a chaotic, infinite space where the rules seem to change without warning, where the variables are too numerous to count, and where your nervous system must constantly calculate what might happen next. It is exhausting. It is mathematically exhausting to live in an open system. But tonight, you do not have to navigate the infinite. Tonight, we are going to look at something entirely different. We are going to look at a closed system. Imagine a perfect flat square, 4 straight sides, exactly 40 distinct spaces. This is the board. It is a world of absolute mathematical certainty. The rules here do not shift. The boundaries do not move. There are no unseen variables waiting to surprise you in the dark. Everything that can possibly happen is already contained within this exact, finite geometry. Your brain spends all day trying to map an unmappable reality, but observing a closed system gives your nervous system permission to finally rest. It recognizes the boundaries. It sees the limits. It understands that the chaos is contained. You do not have to make any decisions tonight. You do not have to roll the dice, count your resources, or worry about what comes next. You only have to listen to the quiet, inevitable mathematics of a world that is perfectly sealed. Let your shoulders drop, that the edges of the board become the edges of your awareness. Safe, defined, and completely predictable. Mathematics of the roll. When you pick up 2 small cubes and shake them in your closed hand, you are engaging in an act that feels, to your nervous system, like pure chaos. The clattering sound of plastic against plastic, the physical vibration against your palm, the sudden release of your fingers, the tumbling across the flat board, it feels as though you are relinquishing all control. Your brain, which spends every waking second of your life trying to predict the future and keep you safe, watches those tumbling cubes and registers uncertainty. It asks the same background question it asks in every unpredictable moment of your day: what will happen next? And because it does not know the answer, because the dice are still spinning and bouncing off the edges, a tiny, almost imperceptible spike of activation occurs. You brace yourself. You wait for the universe to decide your fate. In that brief tumbling moment, it feels like literally anything could happen. But this feeling of infinite possibility is an illusion. It is a stressful, exhausting illusion that your body treats as real, but the cold, quiet mathematics of the board knows to be entirely false. There is no infinite chaos here. There is no boundless unpredictability. There are only 2 cubes, and each cube has exactly 6 sides, and when you drop them, they do not fall into an unknowable void. They fall into a perfectly constrained, tightly sealed matrix of probability. There are exactly 36 ways those 2 dice can land. Not an infinite number of outcomes, not a terrifying, unmappable future. Just 36 discrete, entirely knowable results. 36 tiny, contained universes. And your nervous system, which fears the infinite, which exhausts itself trying to plan for endless possibilities, can find profound biological rest in the finite. Imagine laying all 36 of those possible outcomes out in front of you right now. Picture them forming a perfect grid, 6 by 6. When you look at them all at once, the chaos completely evaporates. The randomness dissolves into structure. If you want to roll a 2, the lowest possible number, there is only one universe out of the 36 where that happens. The 1 and the 1. It is rare. It is a mathematical outlier. If you want to roll a 12, the highest possible leap forward, there is only one universe for that as well. The 6 and the 6. The extremes of this system are heavily constrained. They are inherently difficult to reach. The mathematics of the board naturally pulls away from the dangerous, unpredictable edges. As you move away from those rare extremes and toward the middle, the possibilities begin to stack. They begin to form a shape. There are 2 ways to roll a 3, 3 ways to roll a 4, 4 ways to roll a 5, 5 ways to roll a 6, and then, perfectly positioned in the absolute center of this mathematical architecture, is the number 7. There are exactly 6 different ways to roll a 7. the 1 and the 6, the 2 and the 5, the 3 and the 4, and their reverses. Out of 36 possible futures, 6 of them lead to exactly the same place. This is not randomness, this is a bell curve, this is gravity. The number 7 exerts a mathematical pull on the entire game, dragging the chaos toward a predictable, stable, inevitable center. Your body understands the profound comfort of the bell curve, even if your conscious mind has never thought about it in mathematical terms. The bell curve is the shape of stability. It is the shape of a system that knows exactly where its center of gravity lies. In your daily life, you spend so much energy worrying about the outliers. You worry about the 2s and the 12s, the worst-case scenarios, the sudden catastrophes, and the impossible leaps you feel you are supposed to make. You brace for the extremes. You deplete your cognitive resources and your physical energy preparing for outcomes that the mathematics of reality have already made incredibly rare. But the board does not worry about the extremes. The board knows that the vast majority of the time, the universe will deliver you somewhere in the middle. Safe, ordinary, expected. The center of the curve, and your nervous system desperately wants to live in the center of the curve. It wants the predictability of the 7. It wants the safety of knowing that the most likely outcome is simply the ordinary outcome. When you realize that the chaos of the roll is actually just a bell curve disguising itself as randomness, something inside you can finally let go. The vigilance you carry, the constant exhausting monitoring for unpredictable threats is no longer necessary here. You do not have to fight the randomness because the randomness is already organized. It is already structured. The math has already done the heavy lifting of sorting the universe into a safe, predictable pattern. You can just let the dice fall. You can just let the numbers settle, knowing that the most likely outcome is exactly the one the system is designed to handle. The center holds. The math guarantees it. Tonight, you do not have to be the one calculating the probabilities. You do not have to hold the 36 universes in your mind. You do not have to brace for the roll or worry about the extremes. You can simply rest in the quiet certainty that the center is stable. Your nervous system does not need to spike. It does not need to ask what happens next, because the math has already answered. What happens next is what usually happens. The middle. The safe, predictable, unremarkable center of the curve. The place where the majority of life is actually lived, and where the deepest rest is finally possible. Let your breathing align with that center. Let your heart rate find its stable middle. The dice have stopped tumbling. The numbers have settled. There is no more chaos to navigate tonight. There is only the quiet, inevitable truth of the math, holding you safely in the center of the curve. You are exactly where the probability says you should be. You are safe, you are contained, and you are allowed, completely allowed, to stop calculating, stop predicting, and simply rest inside the math. Law of large numbers. When you play a game for only a few minutes, it feels entirely dependent on luck. You roll once and you land on a penalty. You roll again and you miss the safe space you needed by exactly one step. It feels personal. It feels as though the universe is deliberately withholding what you require, targeting you with specifically calibrated misfortune. Your nervous system reacts to this short-term variance with immediate alarm. It takes a single bad roll and projects it into the future, convincing you that this brief streak of bad luck is a permanent state. This is exactly what your mind does after a difficult day. It takes 24 hours of friction, a handful of stressful interactions, or a sequence of minor failures, and it tells you that this is just how life is now. It convinces you that the chaos is the rule. But there is a mathematical principle that proves this fear is entirely unfounded. It is called the law of large numbers, and it is one of the most profoundly comforting truths in the universe. The law of large numbers states that as a sample size grows, its mean gets closer and closer to the average of the whole population. In the language of the board, it means this. If you roll the dice 10 times, the results might look incredibly chaotic. You might see a cluster of 2s or an unusual string of 11s. You might land on every penalty and miss every reward. But if you roll the dice 10,000 times, the chaos vanishes completely. The anomalies are swallowed by the average. The luck, whether good or bad, simply evaporates, leaving behind nothing but perfect, smooth, undeniable predictability. Imagine watching a graph of those rolls. In the first 20 rolls, the line is jagged and sharp. It spikes up violently and plunges down without warning. It looks like a heart monitor during a panic attack. It looks like anxiety. But as you zoom out to 100 rolls, the spikes become slightly less severe. Zoom out to 1,000 rolls, and the jagged line begins to resemble a gentle rolling wave. Zoom out to 100,000 rolls, and the line becomes practically flat. It settles exactly on the mathematical average. 7. The extremes do not survive the passage of time. The short-term crises do not define the long-term reality. The longer the system runs, the more stable it becomes. Your body operates on this exact same principle. You have days where everything feels jagged. Days where your stress hormones are high, your energy is completely depleted, your digestion is off, and your nervous system feels entirely dysregulated. In those short-term windows, it is so easy to believe that your biology has failed you, that you are permanently broken, that the jagged spikes of anxiety or exhaustion are your new permanent reality. But your biology is playing a much longer game than your conscious mind can perceive. Your body is a system that has been running not for a few days, but for millions of seconds, millions of breaths, millions of heartbeats. And over the long term, your body obeys the law of large numbers. It inevitably pulls back toward homeostasis. It pulls back toward the baseline. You do not have to fix a bad roll today. You do not have to overcorrect for a difficult week. You do not have to panic because the short-term graph of your life looks chaotic right now. The pressure to constantly win, to constantly roll the right numbers, to constantly perform at your peak is based on a fundamental misunderstanding of how biological and mathematical systems function. You are not meant to sustain the highs, and you are not doomed to remain in the lows. The mathematics of your existence guarantee that the anomalies will smooth themselves out. The single bad day is swallowed by the thousands of ordinary functioning days you have already lived. The single night of poor sleep is absorbed by the thousands of nights where your body rested exactly as it was designed to. You are not defined by the short-term variance. You are held by the long-term average. Tonight, you can stop fighting the short-term fluctuations. You can stop analyzing what went wrong today, or why yesterday felt so difficult. You can let go of the micro-panics that come from staring too closely at a tiny sample size of your life. Step back. Zoom out. Look at the thousands of days you have successfully survived. Look at the millions of breaths your body has effortlessly taken. The math is on your side. The bad luck is evaporating. The chaos is smoothing out into a quiet, reliable, flat line of ordinary existence. You do not need to try to smooth it out yourself. You do not need to exert effort to find balance. The law of large numbers works without your conscious participation. It works while you are not paying attention. It works while you are sleeping. The longer you exist, the more stable the equation becomes. Every ordinary day adds another reliable data point to the center. Every normal breath reinforces your biological baseline. Every quiet night deepens the absolute certainty of the average. You are safe inside the large numbers. The anomalies cannot hurt you here. The bad rolls are already dissolving into the vast, calm ocean of statistical certainty. Let the jagged lines soften in your mind. Let the short-term worries fade into the background. Let the timeline expand until there is nothing left to be anxious about. 10,000 rolls, 100,000 breaths, everything returning to the center. Everything finding its natural balance. The law is holding you. The numbers are holding you. You are allowed to stop rolling for the night. Allowed to step away from the board. Allowed to let the great, quiet weight of the average pull you down into deep, predictable, guaranteed rest. The math is doing the work. You just have to sleep. Bored is an infinite loop. Most of the anxiety that keeps you awake at night comes from a fundamental misunderstanding about the shape of your life. Somewhere along the way, you were taught that your existence is supposed to be a straight line, a ladder, an endless upward trajectory where every day must push you further along a path towards some distant, unknown destination. You are told to make progress. You are told to move forward. But a straight line is a terrifying geometry for a biological organism to inhabit. A straight line has no end, which means the work is never finished, or worse. A straight line has a sudden drop, an edge you cannot see until you fall off it. When you believe your life is a straight line, your nervous system must constantly lean forward into the dark, bracing for what comes next, exhausting itself in a perpetual state of forward momentum. But tonight, we are looking at the board. And the board is not a line, it is a perfect, continuous loop. There are exactly 40 squares arranged in a flawless perimeter. When you begin, you move forward, space by space, counting your steps. But you are never walking away from your foundation, and you are never marching toward a terrifying unknown edge, because no matter how fast you move, no matter how many doubles you roll, no matter how far you travel, the board gently curves. You reach the corner, and you turn. You reach the next corner, and you turn again. And eventually, inevitably, the path brings you exactly back to where you started. 40 squares, a perfectly closed circuit. Think about the profound psychological relief of the loop. When you walk a straight line into the unknown, your brain must consume massive amounts of energy processing novel information. Every step is new, every horizon is unfamiliar. Your threat detection systems must remain highly activated because you do not know what is coming. But on a loop of 40 squares, the unknown is quickly mapped. Once you complete that first circuit, you have seen the entire world. There are no dark corners left. There are no surprise territories waiting to ambush you. Every time you travel around the board after that first rotation, you are simply returning to the familiar. You are moving, yes, but you are moving through a landscape you already know. Your nervous system loves the familiar loop. It craves the predictable cycle. Because in a cyclical environment, vigilance is no longer required. Your brain can stop processing threats and start conserving energy. You know where the penalties are. You know where the safe spaces are. The geography of your reality is mapped, secure, and comfortably contained. This is not just the mechanics of a cardboard game. This is the exact architecture of your biology. Your body does not understand the modern obsession with linear progress. Your cells do not care about your upward trajectory. Your biology is built entirely on the comfort of the loop. Consider your circadian rhythm. It is a masterpiece of cyclical engineering. A continuous 24-hour loop written into the very DNA of your cells. Your body does not want to just keep pushing forward into the unknown. It wants to return to the beginning. It wants the sun to rise, triggering the release of cortisol, initiating the active phase of your circuit. It wants you to move through the spaces of your day, expending energy, interacting with your environment, completing your daily tasks. And then, as the light fades, it wants you to turn the final corner. It wants the melatonin to rise. It wants the temperature of your core to drop. It wants you to cross the boundary of sleep and return to the start. Over and over again. 24 hours, 40 squares, the same reliable, comforting loop that human beings have walked for hundreds of thousands of years. Your ancestors did not live linear lives, they lived cyclical lives. They understood the rhythm of the seasons, the phases of the moon, the planting and the harvest. They did not expect every day to be a dramatic leap into new territory. They found deep, sustainable meaning in returning to the same places, performing the same necessary actions, and resting in the same familiar dark. They understood that returning to the beginning is not a failure of progress. It is the foundation of survival. In the game, passing the starting square is not a regression. It is not a sign that you have failed to move forward. Passing the beginning is the only way to collect the baseline resources you need to continue. It is a necessary reset. It is the system rewarding you simply for completing the circuit. 200 units of energy, handed to you not because you achieved something extraordinary, not because you conquered new territory, but simply because you survived the loop and returned to the start. Your sleep tonight is that exact same mechanism. You are returning to the starting square. You are coming back to the bed, back to the familiar weight of the blankets, back to the quiet dark. and your body is waiting to hand you the baseline energy you need. You do not have to earn it through exceptional performance today. You do not have to prove that you made enough linear progress to justify your rest. You only have to complete the daily circuit. You only have to arrive here at the end of the loop and let the system restore you. Let go of the straight line. You do not have to climb anymore tonight. You do not have to push forward into the dark. You are allowed to just walk the familiar perimeter, 40 squares. A gentle sweeping curve that always brings you home. Notice how comforting it is to know the boundaries of your world right now. You are in your room. You are in your bed. The edges of your physical reality are mapped and safe. There is nowhere else you need to go. There is nothing else you need to discover. You are simply moving through the final squares of your daily rotation. The active phase is over. The striving is done. The nervous system is recognizing the familiar shape of the evening and naturally, automatically powering down. 40 squares, 24 hours. The reliable, endless comfort of the cycle. You are returning to the start. The energy is returning to your cells. The cycle is complete, and it is perfect, and it requires nothing more from you than your willingness to finally, completely close your eyes and let the loop carry you into rest. Gravity of jail. In the exact bottom left corner of the continuous loop, there is a square that every player is taught to fear from the very first time they learn the rules. It is the only space on the board that physically traps you. It represents the sudden, unceremonious loss of your forward momentum. It is the penalty box. It is the place where progress goes to die. When you are sent there, you feel a flare of frustration. You feel as though you have been pulled out of the flow of the game, sidelined, marginalized, and forced to watch everyone else continue to move while you are stuck entirely in place. But this is a fundamental misinterpretation of the mathematics. If you look at the board not as a competition, but as a topography of probability, that corner square is not a punishment. It is an anchor. It is the single most powerful gravitational center in the entire closed system. There are 40 spaces on the board, but the mathematical weight is not distributed evenly among them. The board is tilted. The topography slopes downward, creating a deep, unavoidable valley right in that bottom left corner. Think about how the rules are constructed. You can visit this space simply by landing on it during your normal rotation. That is one path, but there is also a square diagonally opposite that acts as a trapdoor, instantly teleporting you across the board into that corner. That is a second path. There is a card hidden in the orange deck that will send you there. That is a third path. There is a card hidden in the yellow deck that will do the exact same thing. That is a fourth path. And then there is the rule of speed. If you roll doubles, you get to move again. You get to move fast. But if you move too fast, if you roll 3 consecutive doubles, the physics of the game intervene. The universe forcibly arrests your momentum, pulls you out of your sprint, and drops you directly into that corner space. Because of these multiple overlapping pathways, this single square is the most frequently visited location out of all 40 possibilities. It is a statistical certainty. You cannot avoid it forever. The math will inevitably pull you in. When the game is young and the board is empty, you resent this gravitational pull. You want to keep moving because moving feels like acquiring. It feels like progress. But observe what happens later in the cycle. When the board is fully developed, when every single square outside that corner has become dangerous, when simply taking a step requires you to pay an exhausting toll, and the cost of existing in the open system has become unsustainably high. In that late stage, your perspective shifts entirely. When the board is hostile, you no longer fear that corner. You pray for it. You hope the trapdoor opens beneath you. You hope the card is drawn. Because once you are inside that corner, you are immune. The chaotic, expensive, demanding world continues to cycle around you. But you are no longer required to participate. You are entirely safe from the toll. You do not have to pay the rent. You do not have to navigate the risks. You are granted a mathematically sanctioned sanctuary where the only thing required of you is to simply sit still. Your biological system works in this exact same way. You have an internal anchor, a gravitational center designed to arrest your momentum when the cost of moving forward becomes too high. You call it exhaustion. You call it burnout. You call it feeling stuck, or unmotivated, or tired to the very marrow of your bones. And just like in the early stages of the game, you resent this feeling. You view your inability to move forward as a personal failure. You feel guilty for needing to stop when it seems like everyone else is still effortlessly circling the board. But your nervous system is not punishing you. Your nervous system is a brilliant, highly evolved mathematician. It is constantly calculating the emotional, physical, and cognitive rent of your environment. It knows when the outside world has become too demanding. It knows when another week of forcing yourself to sprint, another sequence of rolling the dice and hoping for the best, will bankrupt your internal energy reserves. And so, when the cost becomes too high, your biology pulls the trapdoor. It triggers the rule of speed. It forces you to stop. The exhaustion you feel is not a failure of your willpower. It is a protective mechanism. It is the biological equivalent of being pulled out of the hostile, draining traffic of daily life and placed into a sanctuary where you are immune to the demands of forward progress. Think of the profound secret relief of having a legitimate excuse to simply do nothing, to be forced into stillness. When you are in this space, the world does not end. The people around you continue to move. The systems continue to operate, the days continue to pass, but you are safely removed from the friction of it all. You are allowed to just sit there. You are given permission to observe the world without having to physically interact with it. Tonight, you are lying in the safest corner of your daily board. Your bed is the ultimate sanctuary from the rent of the waking world. You do not have to generate momentum tonight. You do not have to worry about where your next roll will take you. The gravitational pull of your own biology has brought you here, to this quiet, heavy, necessary stillness. There is a rule that says you can stay in that corner for exactly 3 turns before you are forced to re-enter the game. 3 complete cycles of doing absolutely nothing while the world spins on without you. Let tonight be one of those turns. Let yourself sink into the heavy, comforting gravity of this forced rest. You are not stuck. You are anchored. You are not failing to move. You are not failing to move. You are succeeding at resting. You are safely, perfectly contained in the exact place the mathematics of your body always intended for you to go. Let the stillness hold you. Let the gravity keep you safe. You do not have to roll the dice tonight. You only have to wait, safe and still in the quiet dark. Markov chain reality. When you lie in the dark at the end of a long day, your mind often becomes a relentless archivist. It pulls out the files of your history. It reviews the decisions you made hours ago, days ago, or even years ago. It constructs a heavy, invisible chain linking every past mistake, every misstep, and every unfortunate circumstance directly to this exact moment. Your brain convinces you that your present state is burdened by the accumulated weight of everything that has ever gone wrong. It tells you that your history dictates your future. And because your history is imperfect, your future must be guarded against. This is why your muscles hold tension. This is why you cannot easily sink into the mattress. You are trying to carry the entirety of your past into the rest of your night. But in the realm of probability, there is a beautiful, liberating concept that completely dismantles this anxiety. It is called a Markov chain, named after a Russian mathematician who studied the movement of systems over time. A Markov chain describes a sequence of possible events where the probability of each event depends only on the state attained in the previous event. To put it simply, a Markov chain possesses a mathematical quality known as memorylessness. The board you have been visualizing, the perfect square of 40 spaces, is a flawless, textbook example of a Markov chain. When you are standing on a specific property, your probability of landing on any subsequent space is calculated using only one piece of data, where you are right now. That is the only variable the equation requires. The math does not know how you arrived at this square. It does not know if you rolled perfectly to get here, effortlessly gliding past danger. It does not know if you spent the last 10 turns struggling, paying heavy penalties, and barely surviving the circuit. It does not know if you made terrible choices, or if you had terrible luck. The board has absolutely no memory. It keeps no record of your suffering. It holds no grudges regarding your mistakes. To the cold, perfectly forgiving mathematics of the Markov chain, Your past simply does not exist. Imagine the profound biological relief of stepping into a system with total amnesia. Imagine what it would feel like to be judged only by your current coordinates, completely unburdened by the journey it took to reach them. In your daily life, you carry the narrative of your struggles. You believe that because you failed yesterday, you are statistically more likely to fail tomorrow. You believe that your exhaustion is a permanent stain, a compounding interest of bad roles that you will eventually have to pay off. But the Markov chain proves that this is a cognitive distortion. The dice do not remember your last roll. The plastic cubes have no memory of the fact that they just delivered a penalty. They are completely reset. When you pick them up again, the probabilities are exactly the same as they were on the very first turn of the game. The math is wiped clean. You are allowed to wipe your own math clean tonight. You do not need to carry today into tomorrow. You do not need to drag your history into this bed. Whatever mistakes you made today, whatever friction you encountered, whatever wrong turns brought you to this exact moment in time, they have no mathematical bearing on what happens next. You are simply on a square. You are occupying a single point in space and time, and from this point, the future is entirely neutral. Your nervous system is exhausted because it is trying to process a past that is already gone. It is treating memory as if it were a current active threat. But when you understand the reality of the Markov chain, you understand that the past has no physical mechanism to harm you here. The past is just a sequence of dead coordinates. It is not in the room with you. It is not in the bed with you. It is not in the quiet, steady rhythm of your breathing. There is only the present state. There is only the square you are occupying right now. And look at the square you are occupying. It is safe. It is soft. It is warm. You are lying in the dark, completely removed from the demands of the open system. From this specific coordinate, the only thing that comes next is rest. You do not have to calculate how your past will affect your sleep, because your past is not invited into this equation. The heavy chain of your history has been severed by the simple, elegant blade of probability. Let the memorylessness wash over you. Give your brain permission to stop archiving the day. The board does not remember. The universe, at its most fundamental mathematical level, does not remember. It only responds to where you are right now, and right now, you are resting. Right now, you are safe. Right now, your breathing is slowing. Your heart rate is finding its baseline, and your body is letting go of the tension it accumulated hours ago. The past rolls of the dice have completely evaporated. The penalties have been paid and forgotten. The math has zeroed out. There is nothing to defend against, nothing to carry, and nothing to hold on to. You are a single point in the present moment, perfectly insulated from the history of your own life. Let the past dissolve into the quiet nothingness it belongs to. Let the absolute forgiveness of the Markov chain hold you. You are here. You are completely new, and you are allowed to just be here, untethered and unburdened, sinking deeper and deeper into the memoryless dark. Steady state vector. Imagine a glass snow globe sitting quietly on a wooden desk. If you leave it alone, the water inside is perfectly clear. The tiny white particles rest in a smooth, even layer at the very bottom. The system is at peace. But when you pick it up and shake it, you introduce violent energy into the environment. The particles are thrown into the water, swirling in chaotic, unpredictable storms. They bounce off the curved glass, collide with one another, and ride invisible currents of turbulence. If you were to try and track the exact location of a single particle during this storm, your mind would quickly become overwhelmed. The variables are simply too numerous. The movement is too erratic. This is what the beginning of the game feels like. This is what the beginning of your day feels like. You wake up, the globe is shaken, and suddenly you are thrown into a swirling, highly energized matrix of demands, conversations, decisions, and movement. In the mathematics of probability, this state of swirling chaos has a name. It is a system in transition. When you start moving your piece around the 40 squares of the board, your probability of being on any given space is wildly volatile. On turn 1, you might be on a property, or you might be on a penalty space. On turn 2, the possibilities branch out further. By turn 10, the probabilities are shifting so rapidly that the mathematical model looks just like the swirling storm inside the snow globe. The numbers are bouncing off the edges. The system is highly agitated. Your brain, trying to keep up with the shifting landscape of your daily life, mimics this agitation. It tries to calculate all the moving parts, desperately trying to map a world that refuses to stand still. But mathematicians know a secret about systems like this. They know that the turbulence cannot last forever. If you take that volatile, shifting matrix of probabilities and you let the game run, not for 10 turns, not for 100 turns, but for 1 million turns, but for 1 million turns, 10 million turns, all the way out to infinity, something incredibly beautiful happens. The math stops shifting. The turbulence exhausts itself. The probabilities lock into a permanent, unchanging pattern. In linear algebra, this ultimate quiet destination is called the steady-state vector. The steady-state vector is the mathematical equivalent of the snow globe finally being placed back down on the desk. When a Markov chain reaches its steady state, the percentage chance of landing on any specific square stops fluctuating. The numbers settle. The dust falls to the floor. It no longer matters where you started. It no longer matters how wildly the dice rolled in the first 100 turns. The system has found its permanent equilibrium. If you freeze the game at infinity, the board is perfectly calm. The exact probability of occupying each square is known, fixed, and totally at rest. The chaos was only ever a temporary illusion, a brief storm on the way to absolute, mathematical stillness. Your body is a complex mathematical system, and it has been searching for its steady-state vector all day long. Since the moment you woke up, your nervous system has been managing the turbulence. Your heart rate increased to navigate the morning rush. Your cortisol levels spiked to handle the stress of your responsibilities. Your cognitive load shifted rapidly as you bounced from one task to another, one square to another, paying tolls, collecting resources, and surviving the constant demanding friction of the open world. You were a system in extreme transition. You were the shaken globe. And because you are still feeling the residual echoes of that turbulence, you might mistakenly believe that the chaos is your permanent state. You might feel the lingering hum of anxiety and assume that the dust will never settle. But you are no longer shaking the globe. The inputs have stopped. The demands of the day have ceased. The active portion of the game has been suspended. Because the inputs have stopped, your biology is already mathematically guaranteed to find its equilibrium. You do not have to force yourself to calm down. You do not have to actively suppress the lingering thoughts of the day. You only have to allow the steady-state vector to assert itself. It is a physical inevitability. Your nervous system is designed to return to baseline. It is a homeostatic engine, constantly pulling you away from the chaotic extremes and back toward a quiet, sustainable center. Notice how the settling is already happening. With every breath you take, the probabilities are locking into place. The wild fluctuations of your daytime energy are smoothing out into a long, slow, even frequency. Your heart rate is dropping, finding its steady state. Your body temperature is naturally cooling, finding its steady state. The tension in your jaw, the tightness in your shoulders, the shallow, rapid breathing of the afternoon, all of it is dissolving, falling like tiny white particles through clear water, coming to rest at the very bottom of the glass. You do not need to calculate anything anymore. The early game is over. The turbulence has completely exhausted itself. The math has calculated all the way out to infinity, and the answer it found was stillness. Pure, uninterrupted stillness. Let the weight of that stillness pull you deeper into the mattress. You are no longer bouncing between squares. You are no longer navigating the unpredictable variables of the waking world. You have reached the asymptote. You have found the equilibrium. The system is at peace, and you are entirely safe inside it. Let the dust settle. Let the math hold you. Let your body finally completely arrive at its perfect, quiet, steady state. Heat map of the board. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine looking down at the board from a great height. The room around you is completely dark. In this space, the board is no longer made of cardboard and ink. It is made of glass, and it is illuminated from within by a soft, shifting light. We are going to look at the mathematics of this closed system, not through numbers, but through temperature. We are going to look at the heat map of probability. In data visualization, a heat map uses color to show where activity is concentrated. When a square on the board is rarely visited, it glows with a faint, cool blue. It is a quiet space, mathematically still, generating very little friction. When a square is landed on with moderate frequency, the color warms, shifting into a soft, bruised purple and then into a gentle pink. But when a square represents a highly probable destination, when the mathematics of the dice and the rules funnel the movement of the game directly onto that specific piece of glass, it burns with a deep, radiant orange, pulsing with a warm, heavy red of absolute certainty. If you let the game run for 10,000 turns, this heat map emerges in perfect, undeniable clarity. The first stretch of the board, just after the starting square, is bathed in a tranquil, icy blue. The properties here are lonely. The chance of landing on them is statistically low. As you turn the first corner, the colors begin to shift. The cool blue slowly fades into purple. By the time you reach the second corner, the board is glowing with a comforting, steady orange. And there, in the bottom left corner, the jail space sits like a mathematical furnace, burning with the brightest, deepest red of all. Because of the immense gravity of that single space, the properties immediately following it catch that residual heat glowing brightly with high probability before the temperature slowly cools again, fading back down into purple and blue as you move toward the final stretch of the 40 squares. Why is this image so profoundly soothing to your nervous system? Because a heat map is, fundamentally, a map of a river. It shows you exactly where the water flows. When you navigate your waking life, you operate under the exhausting assumption that you must constantly steer the ship. From the moment you wake up, your brain is forced into a state of active, relentless decision-making. You must choose what to wear, what to eat, what route to take, how to respond to an email, how to handle a crisis, how to navigate the endlessly shifting variables of your relationships and your responsibilities. In neuroscience, this is known as cognitive load, and it results in a very real, biological phenomenon called decision fatigue. Your brain is a physical organ. It consumes roughly 20% of your body's energy. Every single choice you make, no matter how insignificant, burns through your finite reserves of glucose and oxygen. By the end of the day, the sheer act of steering your life has left you depleted. You feel tired because you have spent the last 16 hours fighting the current, trying to force outcomes, trying to paddle your way through the chaotic waters of an open system. But the heat map offers a completely different reality. The heat map proves that inside this closed system, you do not have to steer at all. When you look at the glowing red and orange spaces on the board, you are looking at the natural current of the mathematics. The flow has already been determined. The dice are the water, and the rules of the board are the riverbanks. The path is carved. The journey is already mapped. You might think you are making choices when you play, but over the course of a long game, the heat map reveals the truth. You are simply riding a mathematical current that was established long before you ever picked up the dice. Tonight, you are allowed to surrender to the current. You do not have to make any more decisions. You do not have to chart a course for tomorrow. You do not have to evaluate your choices from today. The cognitive load that has been pressing down on your brain can be entirely lifted, because in this moment, there is absolutely nothing left to decide. You can just lie back and let the heavy, predictable current of the heat map carry you. Imagine the profound physical relief of taking your hands off the wheel. Imagine the sensation of dropping the oars. You do not have to paddle. You do not have to fight the water. You can just float. Picture yourself drifting over the glass board. You pass smoothly over the cool, quiet blue squares. You feel the gentle, radiant warmth of the orange and red squares as the current pulls you safely through the center of the probability curve. There are no sudden rapids here. There are no hidden rocks beneath the surface. The heat map has illuminated every inch of the territory. The math has already calculated exactly where you are going to end up. And you do not have to exert a single ounce of energy to get there. Your nervous system can finally transition out of its active decision-making mode, the default mode network in your brain, the The quiet background system that takes over when you stop focusing on external tasks can finally power on. The need for control is dissolving. The illusion that you must manage every aspect of your existence is melting away into the dark. Let the warm colors of the heat map blow softly in your mind. Let them represent the absolute safety of a path that has already been laid out for you. You are held by the current. You are supported by the math. The river knows exactly where it is going, and it is taking you exactly where you need to be. Downward, inward, toward the deep, still waters of rest. There are no more decisions to make tonight. There is only the quiet glow of the board, the gentle pull of the current, and the deep, total surrender to the flow. Orange property anomaly. Look past the halfway point of the board, just before the third corner. Long before the glamorous, expensive finale of the dark blue squares, and past the early cheap struggles of the brown and light blue. Here, sitting quietly in the exact middle of the journey, are the three orange properties: St. James Place, Tennessee Avenue, New York Avenue. In the cultural mythology of the game, they do not hold prestige. They are not the properties you boast about acquiring. They are remarkably, almost aggressively average. They sit firmly in the mundane middle class of the cardboard economy. But in the cold, unfeeling, and entirely truthful realm of probability, these three ordinary squares are the absolute masters of the board. They are the most frequently landed on properties in the entire closed system. They generate more steady, reliable friction than any other color group. They are the mathematical zenith of the game. To understand why this happens, you do not have to study complex algorithms. You only have to look at the physical geometry of the board and remember the two mathematical truths we have already established. First, remember the heavy, undeniable gravity of the jail space in the bottom left corner. It is the black hole of the board. The rules and the cards and the speeding penalties funnel everyone there eventually. It is the busiest intersection in this paper universe. Second, remember the shape of the bell curve. When you pick up two dice, the math strongly favors the center. The numbers want to pull you toward a 7 or a 6 or an 8. The extremes are rare, but the middle is inevitable. Now, combine these two truths. What happens when a piece is finally released from the gravity of that corner square? What happens when you re-enter the flow of the game from the most populated space on the board? You pick up two dice and you roll them into the bell curve. If you start at the corner and count forward, you will witness a beautiful, flawless piece of geometric alignment. Exactly 6 spaces away sits the first orange property. Exactly 8 spaces away sits the second. Exactly 9 spaces away sits the third. They are perfectly positioned in the exact landing zone of the most common dice rolls originating from the most common starting point. They catch the vast majority of the statistical fallout. They act as a net, stretched precisely across the widest part of the mathematical river. This is the orange property anomaly, and it contains a profound psychological truth that your nervous system desperately needs to hear tonight. It proves that absolute success and complete security in this system are not about being the most expensive. They are not about being the most glamorous or the most demanding or the furthest along the path. They are simply about being in alignment with the natural, ordinary current of the math. You spend so much of your waking life believing that peace and security require monumental, exhausting effort. Modern culture has convinced you that you must hustle all the way to the end of the board. You are taught that you must strive for the dark blue properties of your life, the extreme peaks of achievement, the highest possible status, the most demanding, high-risk positions in order to finally feel safe. You push yourself to the absolute limits of your biological capacity, believing that if you just work harder, if you just reach the very end of the line, you will finally be allowed to rest. But striving for the extremes is mathematically inefficient. It burns immense amounts of cognitive and physical energy for a statistically improbable payoff. The dark blue squares are lonely. They're rarely landed on. They require massive investment and provide highly infrequent returns. The math says you do not have to strive for the extremes. The math says that the quiet, unremarkable middle is actually the most powerful place to be. When you align yourself with the ordinary rhythms of life, you do not have to hustle. You do not have to force outcomes or manipulate the universe into giving you what you need. The orange properties do not move. They do not work hard. They simply sit exactly where the math inevitably flows. They rely on the geometry of the system to bring the current directly to them. You can let go of the exhausting illusion of hustle tonight. You can release the tension in your jaw and the tightness in your chest that comes from believing you are not far enough along in your life. You do not need to be at the end of the board. You do not need to be the most impressive or the most extraordinary. You are allowed to be ordinary. You are allowed to sit quietly in the middle of your life, doing the simple, unremarkable tasks that keep your daily existence functioning. Your ordinary life is not a failure of ambition, it is perfect geometric alignment. The simple routines you maintain, the quiet habits you repeat, the steady, unglamorous center of your daily existence, these are your orange properties. They are positioned perfectly in the landing zone of everyday reality. They are where the actual substance of life happens. Tonight, your nervous system can drop the burden of needing to be exceptional. The need to perform, to achieve, to reach the far edges of the board is dissolving. It is evaporating into the dark room around you. You do not have to chase the current anymore. You can just rest in the middle, safe in the knowledge that the math naturally flows toward the ordinary. Let yourself be deeply, comfortably average tonight. There is nothing to prove. There is no distance left to travel. You are already sitting in the mathematical center of the game, perfectly aligned with the quiet, inevitable flow of rest. Let the geometry hold you. Let the probabilities wash over you. The universe is coming to you predictable and smooth, requiring absolutely no effort on your part. Just lie still, aligned and safe, and let the math do the rest. Chance deck mechanics. There is a specific kind of exhaustion that comes from staring into the dark and trying to predict the future. Your mind is an organ designed for pattern recognition, and it deeply, fundamentally hates the unknown. When it looks at tomorrow, or next week, or next year, and finds missing data, it does not simply leave that space blank. It fills the void with projections, it invents scenarios, it constructs elaborate, cascading architectures of what-ifs, usually leaning toward the catastrophic, because preparing for the worst is how your ancestors survived in an unpredictable wilderness. You lie awake because you are treating the future as an open, infinite expanse where absolutely anything can happen. You are trying to defend against a universe of endless, terrifying variables. On the board, this fear of the unknown is perfectly symbolized by a single, distinct space. It is marked with a large, curving question mark. It is called chance. When your piece lands on this square, your nervous system experiences a microspike of activation. You reach your hand toward the center of the board to draw from the orange deck. In that fraction of a second, while your fingers are resting on the top card, but before you've flipped it over, you are suspended in total uncertainty. It feels as though the universe is entirely open. It feels as though the card could say absolutely anything, that it could ruin your strategy, bankrupt your resources, or send you spiraling into chaos. The name of the deck itself, chance, implies a wild, untethered randomness. It implies a total lack of control. But this is an illusion. The randomness is a lie. The unknown is not an infinite abyss. Look closely at that stack of orange paper. It is not a bottomless well of possibilities. It is exactly 16 cards, not 17, not 100. Not 1 million, exactly 16 distinct, highly specific, rigidly defined outcomes. You can hold the entire sum of the game's unknown variables between your thumb and your forefinger. It is a closed loop of predictable fortune. The deck has a flaw. The chaos has strict, unyielding boundaries. Let us break down the terrifying unknown of those 16 cards. What is actually in the dark? 10 of those cards simply dictate movement. They ask you to advance to a specific location, a railroad, a utility, a color group, or the starting square. 2 of the cards grant you a small, unexpected influx of resources. 2 of the cards require you to pay a minor, calculated penalty. 1 card grants you a pass to escape the jail corner. And 1 card, exactly 1, asks you to move backward exactly 3 spaces. That is it. That is the absolute limit of the unknown. That is the entirety of the chaos. When you realize that the deck only contains 16 possibilities, the fear begins to evaporate. Your nervous system, which was burning immense amounts of energy preparing to defend against infinite threats, can suddenly stand down. It does not have to prepare for everything. It only has to prepare for 16 things. And because those 16 things are entirely knowable, entirely manageable, the cognitive load of anticipating the future drops to nearly nothing. Your actual, daily life operates on a very similar principle, even if it does not feel like it. You treat tomorrow as if it is an infinite deck of chance cards. You worry that the universe will invent some entirely new, unimaginable problem to throw at you. But the reality of your everyday existence is that your variables are heavily constrained. They are constrained by physics, by your geography, by the routines you have built, and by the societal structures you live within. The things that can actually happen to you tomorrow are not infinite. They are drawn from a surprisingly small, highly predictable deck. Think about the surprises you have faced over the last year. Most of them were just variations of the same finite events. You have faced unexpected costs before, and you survived them. You have been forced to change your location or your plans before, and you survived it. You have received unexpected windfalls, and you have experienced minor setbacks. There are very few truly new cards in the deck of your life. The surprises are just the same basic, manageable variables shuffled into a different order. There is profound physical relief in accepting the boundaries of the unknown. You do not have to stay awake tonight trying to map an infinite future, because an infinite future does not exist. The parameters of your reality are closed. The deck is small. The limits of chance are strictly enforced by the mathematics of the system you live inside. You can let go of the need to anticipate. You can stop trying to guess what the top card of tomorrow will be. It does not matter what the top card is, because whatever it is, you already know the shape of it. It will be manageable. It will be bounded. It will be something you have the capacity to handle, just as you have handled every single card you have ever drawn in the past. And more importantly, you do not have to draw a card right now. Tonight, the deck is face down. No one is landing on the space. No one is reaching for the paper. The potential energy of the unknown is sitting quietly in the center of the board, completely deactivated. The future is paused. Tomorrow is paused. The cards are perfectly still. Let that stillness mirror the stillness in your own body. Let your breathing slow down to match the quiet, dormant state of the deck. There are no surprises waiting for you in this room. There are no sudden changes in the rules. There is only the familiar dark, the steady weight of gravity, and the absolute certainty that the unknown is small, contained, and safely packed away. You do not have to prepare for the infinite. You only have to close your eyes, release your grip on the future, and let yourself sink into the perfectly bounded safety of the present moment. The deck is closed. You are allowed to rest. Community chest. On the opposite side of the board from the orange chance cards, sitting quietly in its own designated rectangle, is a second stack of paper. It is yellow. It is called the community chest. And while the chance deck represents the fear of a chaotic, unpredictable future, the community chest represents a different kind of burden that keeps you awake at night. It represents your obligations. It represents the endless microscopic transactions required simply to exist in a society. When you lie in bed, your mind often transforms into an anxious accountant. It opens a mental ledger and begins to tally everything you owe and everything that is owed to you. You think about the bills that are due, the emails you have not answered, the favors you need to return, and the subtle, invisible social debts you feel you carry. It feels as though the world is constantly demanding pieces of you, a relentless stream of minor taxes levied on your time, your energy, and your resources. You worry that if you stop calculating, if you drop the ledger even for a moment, the debts will overwhelm you. Your nervous system stays activated, holding on to a low-level financial and social panic, treating these ordinary obligations as if they are existential threats. But let us look closely at the community chest. Let us look at the reality of this shared economic loop. Just like the chance deck, the infinite burden you feel is a complete illusion. The community chest is not a bottomless pit of debt. It is exactly 16 cards. That is the absolute mathematical limit of the societal friction in this closed system. Exactly 16 yellow rectangles. And when you examine what is actually printed on those 16 cards, you discover something incredibly profoundly boring. And boring, to an exhausted nervous system, is the ultimate biological luxury. What is in the chest? You pay a hospital fee of 100. You receive an income tax refund of 20. You win second prize in a beauty contest and collect 10. Your life insurance matures and you collect 100. You pay a school tax of 50. You receive 50 from every player for your birthday. A bank error in your favor yields 200. You pay a doctor's fee of 50. Look at the absolute, beautiful mundanity of these events. There are no catastrophes here. There are no cards that say your life is ruined, or that you are fundamentally incapable of surviving, or that the system has permanently locked you out. There is only the gentle, predictable breathing of a societal ledger. Money flows in. Money flows out, resources are gathered and resources are spent. It is nothing more than the ordinary, unavoidable friction of being alive alongside other people. Your real life operates on this exact same principle. The obligations that are keeping you awake, the fees, the taxes, the minor unexpected expenses, the social duties, they are not uniquely targeted cursors. They are just the community chest. They are the standard baseline cards that every single human being must draw simply because we live in a shared world. Everyone pays the doctor. Everyone pays the school tax. Everyone occasionally benefits from a minor, unexpected windfall. You spend so much energy trying to perfectly balance the equation, trying to reach a state where you owe absolutely nothing to anyone and nothing unexpected ever arises. But the mathematics of the community chest prove that a state of absolute zero friction does not exist. And more importantly, it is not required for you to win, to survive, or to be safe. The fluctuations are small, they are capped. The worst financial card in the deck asks you to pay for street repairs, 40 per house, 115 per hotel. It scales with your success, meaning the system only taxes you heavily when it mathematically knows you have the infrastructure to support it. The system is not designed to break you. It is designed to create a slow, sustainable circulation of resources. Think about your own physical body. Your body is also a community chest of circulating resources. Every time you move a muscle, you spend a tiny amount of cellular currency. Every time you eat, you collect a small dividend. Every time you exhale, you are paying a biological tax back into the atmosphere. Every time you inhale, you are receiving an essential refund. You do not lie awake panicking about whether you have enough oxygen for your next breath because you trust the cyclical nature of the system. You know that the exhale is naturally followed by the inhale. You can apply that exact same biological trust to the social and financial obligations of your life. The ledger does not have to be perfectly balanced tonight. The minor debts and the minor windfalls will constantly trade places. You will pay the 50. You will collect the 200. The cycle will continue, safe and bounded and entirely manageable, just as it always has. You do not need to be the accountant tonight. You can put the ledger down. You can close the books. The 16 yellow cards are sitting perfectly aligned in the center of the board. The bank is closed. The transactions are suspended. No one is asking you to pay a fee right now, and no one is handing you a dividend. The entire economy of your daily life has been placed on pause. Let the relief of that pause wash through your muscles. Feel the tension leaving your hands, the hands that do not need to hold a pen, or a phone, or a steering wheel, or a calculator right now. There is absolutely nothing you owe to the world in this exact moment. Your only obligation is to breathe. Inhale, exhale. The simplest, oldest transaction in the history of biology. Let the yellow deck fade into the dark. Let the numbers dissolve. Let the concept of owing and earning vanish entirely from your mind. The community chest is closed. The lid is heavy and shut. You are completely off the clock, completely removed from the cycle of transaction, and you are allowed finally to just rest in the quiet, priceless zero of the night. Advanced to-go teleportation. Hidden inside those small stacks of paper in the exact center of the board, there is a specific card that completely breaks the fundamental physics of the game. It is a card that suspends the normal linear progression of the mathematics you have been bound to. When you turn it over, the text is simple, but the implication is profoundly powerful. It says, "Advance to go, collect 200. To understand the deep biological relief of this card, you must first imagine exactly where you are when you draw it. Imagine that you are deep into the third side of the board. You are navigating the gauntlet. The spaces ahead of you are loaded with danger. The red properties, the yellow properties, the terrifying stretch of the green properties. The board has been built up, and the mathematical probability of surviving the next 3 rolls is aggressively low. Your expected value, the calculated anticipation of your future, is deeply, heavily negative. Your nervous system, acting as your internal mathematician, is bracing for the impact. It is looking at the squares ahead and calculating how much energy, how much capital, and how much resilience it will cost to survive the next 10 spaces. It feels like you have to walk through a minefield. It feels like every single step is going to demand a piece of you, and you are already so tired. This is exactly how your mind feels at the end of an exhausting day. You look at the problems you have not solved. You look at the complex, demanding situations waiting for you tomorrow. You look at the friction of your relationships, the weight of your responsibilities, the literal gauntlet of your waking life, and you believe, mistakenly, that you have to walk through all of it right now. You believe that the only way to get back to a place of safety is to painstakingly, step by agonizing step, solve every single problem in a linear sequence. You try to think your way through the gauntlet, planning for every possible toll, bracing for every possible penalty. But then, the rules of the physical universe are temporarily suspended. You draw the card. Advance to go. In a single fraction of a second, the mathematics of your situation completely change. The linear rules no longer apply. You do not have to roll the dice. You do not have to count your steps, one by one, through the dangerous territory. You do not have to walk past the houses and the hotels. You do not have to endure the friction. You are lifted entirely out of the timeline. You are teleported across the board, bypassing every single threat, every single toll, and every single danger. You simply cease to exist in the hostile territory, and you reappear gently and safely at the absolute beginning. This mathematical teleportation is exactly what sleep is. Sleep is the ultimate biological advance to go card. When you are awake, you are bound by the linear progression of time and consequence. You are trapped on the board, forced to navigate the spaces. But when you sleep, you are granted a sanctioned biological bypass. You are lifted out of the waking world. The problems that are waiting for you in the green and dark blue squares of your life do not disappear, but you no longer have to walk through them. You are flying over them. You are completely detached from the physical reality of the board. The math cannot touch you when you are in the air. The tolls cannot be collected when you are no longer standing on the squares. And when you finally touch down, when the teleportation is complete, you arrive at the safest space in the entire closed system. You arrive at go, the starting line, the blank slate, and what happens when you arrive. The system does not ask you for a toll. The system does not demand that you prove your worth. The system simply hands you 200 units of pure, baseline potential. Collect 200. This is not a prize for winning. It is not a reward for clever strategy. It is the fundamental, non-negotiable salary of existence. In the game, those 200 units of currency are the exact amount of capital required to begin a new cycle. In your body, those 200 units are the exact biological resources required to face a new day. While you sleep, your body is collecting its 200. It is clearing out the adenosine that built up in your brain, washing away the chemical pressure of exhaustion. It is synthesizing proteins, repairing muscle fibers, and replenishing the finite stores of glucose in your prefrontal cortex. Your neurotransmitters are resetting. Your immune system is restocking its defenses. You are collecting the absolute baseline energy that the universe owes you, simply for completing the loop and returning to the start. You do not have to earn this reset. You do not have to be a perfect player to receive the 200. The bank gives it to you freely, automatically, Every single time you pass that line, the biology of your body gives you rest freely, automatically, every single time you close your eyes and let the cycle complete itself. Tonight, you do not have to solve the gauntlet. You do not have to figure out how you are going to survive the high-rent properties of tomorrow. You are drawing the card right now. The instructions have been given. The system is pulling you up, lifting you out of the heavy, complex mathematics of your daily struggles. Feel the sensation of being lifted. Feel the weight of the day disconnecting from your physical form. The worries, the calculations, the exhausting linear steps are falling away beneath you. You are floating over the board. The bright, chaotic colors of the properties are blurring into a single, quiet stream of light as you bypass them entirely. There is no friction here in the air. There are no decisions to make. You are in the beautiful, silent space between the end of today and the beginning of tomorrow. You are advancing to go. The space is waiting for you, quiet and empty, ready to grant you the baseline energy you need. Let yourself be teleported. Let the biological reset happen. You are bypassing the world, floating back to the start, completely safe, completely untethered, and completely ready to rest. Mathematics of railroads. If you look at the exact center of each of the four sides of the board, you will find a square that behaves unlike almost any other space in the game. They form a perfect geometric cross, slicing through the perimeter at exact 90-degree angles. Exactly 10 spaces from the start. Exactly 10 spaces from the corner. Exactly 10 spaces apart from one another. These are the four railroads, and they represent a mathematical sanctuary from the most exhausting rule of the open system, the relentless pressure to constantly build. For the vast majority of the board, simply owning a space is not enough. The colored properties demand constant, aggressive development. If you want them to be valuable, if you want them to protect you, you must pour resources into them. You must buy one green house, and then a second, and a third, and a fourth. And when that is done, you must demolish them to build a towering red hotel. The colored properties operate on the exhausting assumption that your baseline state is insufficient. They enforce a mathematical reality where you are only safe if you are constantly upgrading, constantly tree-vesting, constantly transforming what you have into something larger and more demanding. This is the exact same economic and social pressure that keeps your mind racing at night. You have been taught that you must constantly upgrade your own life. You treat your career, your relationships, your physical body, and your personal growth as properties that require endless development. You lie awake auditing yourself, wondering if you have put enough houses on your skills. You worry that you are falling behind because you have not yet built a hotel on your achievements. You treat your existence as a project that is perpetually under construction, and your nervous system is exhausted by the constant heavy labor of trying to improve a self that simply wants to rest. But the railroads offer a completely different mathematical paradigm. You cannot build a house on a railroad. The rules strictly, unequivocally forbid it. You cannot upgrade a train station. You cannot construct a hotel on the tracks. When you acquire a railroad, the work is instantly and permanently finished. It is exactly what it is, and it will never be anything else. Its value does not come from endless development. Its value comes entirely from its reliable, predictable, steady network. If you possess one, the math is 25. If you possess two, it is 50, then 100, then 200. The progression is flat, clean, and entirely passive. It requires absolutely no further investment of your time, your energy, or your capital. It is a system of pure low-stakes transit. Imagine the profound biological relief of a space where no upgrades are allowed, a space where you are explicitly forbidden from trying to improve. When you land on a railroad, you are stepping out of the brutal real estate market of self-improvement and into the gentle, rhythmic hum of simple maintenance. The railroad does not ask you to be better tomorrow than you were today. It only asks you to keep the trains running. It only asks for the quiet, steady continuation of a baseline function. Your body is filled with these reliable, unupgradable networks. Your vascular system is a railroad. Your respiratory system is a railroad. The rhythmic beating of your heart is the steady, mechanical hum of an engine moving along a track, exactly 10 spaces apart, over and over again. Your heart does not need you to build a hotel on it. Your lungs do not require constant, anxious optimization to function. They are perfect, closed networks of transit. They just need you to let them run. They just need you to stop interfering with the tracks. Think about the physical sensation of riding a train. It is one of the most naturally hypnotic experiences a human being can have. When you board a train, you surrender all control of the destination and the speed. You are not steering. You are not navigating the traffic. You are confined to a metal car, moving along a fixed steel path that was laid down long before you were born. The mathematics of the journey are entirely out of your hands. And because you cannot control it, you are finally allowed to relax inside it. You sit by the window and you listen to the sound, the heavy, rhythmic clack-clack of the steel wheels passing over the joints in the rails. A steady, predictable vibration that travels up through the floor and into your bones. It is a biological lullaby. It is the sound of a machine doing the work so that you do not have to. 10 spaces. Clack-clack. 10 spaces. Clack-clack. The rhythm of the 4 railroads divides the board into perfect, digestible fractions. It breaks the overwhelming journey of the 40 squares into manageable, predictable chapters. You are never more than a few spaces away from the steady hum of transit. You are never far from a space that asks absolutely nothing of your ambition. Tonight, you do not need to build anything. You can put down the tools of self-improvement. You can stop trying to construct a perfect tomorrow. You are allowed to be exactly as you are, a finished functioning system that requires no further upgrades to be valuable. You are stepping off the colored properties of your life and walking onto the quiet, dimly lit platform of the station. The air here is still. The exhausting demands of the city are fading behind you. You are stepping into the gentle, rocking carriage of the night. Feel the vibration of the mattress beneath you, holding you just as the heavy steel tracks hold the train. Let your breathing match the slow, steady rhythm of the wheels. There is no steering wheel in this bed. There is no engine for you to manage. You are just a passenger now. The network is carrying you. The steady, flat, perfect mathematics of the 4 stations are perfectly aligned, moving you effortlessly from the active day into the deep, quiet transit of sleep. Nothing to build, nothing to improve, just the gentle rocking hum of the tracks carrying you safely, inevitably, through the dark. Return on investment. When you purchase a property on the board, there is a specific physical action that must take place. You must reach into your carefully guarded reserves, pick up a stack of brightly colored paper, and hand it over to the bank. In that exact fraction of a second, you are objectively poorer. You have less capital than you did a moment ago. Your resources are depleted, and in exchange, you receive nothing but a small rectangular piece of stiff cardboard. Your brain, which is wired for immediate gratification and short-term survival, deeply dislikes this transaction. It wants to hoard resources. It wants to feel full and secure at all times. When you hand that money away, your nervous system experiences a subtle flash of vulnerability. You have made a sacrifice. You have emptied a part of yourself, and now you must wait. This waiting is the absolute core of economic mathematics. It is the concept of return on investment, and it is one of the most difficult things for a human mind to tolerate because it requires a profound, unshakable patience. Let us look at the cold, quiet calculation of breaking even. Imagine you purchase one of the light blue properties early in the game. You hand over 100 units of currency. The baseline rent for that property, if someone happens to land on it, is exactly 6. If you want to make your money back, if you want to simply return to the baseline of security you felt before you made the purchase, you must collect that rent 17 times. 17 separate, mathematically improbable landings. You have to wait for the other players to circle the entire board, roll the dice, navigate the chaos of the curve, and land perfectly on your specific square. And then you have to wait for them to do it 16 more times. It takes hours. It takes dozens and dozens of cycles around the board. During that time, you cannot force the outcome. You cannot reach across the table and drag another piece onto your property. You cannot manipulate the plastic cubes to guarantee a landing. You have absolutely no control over the speed at which your investment matures. You are entirely at the mercy of time and probability. You simply have to wait, knowing that you are temporarily depleted, trusting that the mathematics will eventually balance the ledger. Your body is undergoing this exact same mathematical process right now. Every single night when you turn off the light and lay your head against the pillow, you are making a massive biological investment. You are surrendering your most valuable resources. You are giving up your consciousness. You are giving up your ability to defend yourself, to produce, to work, and to navigate the open system of your life. You are plunging yourself into a state of total vulnerability, handing over 8 hours of your existence to the quiet dark. But because your modern mind is conditioned to expect immediate, frictionless transactions, you lie in the bed and demand an immediate return on your investment. You expect the exhaustion to vanish the moment you pull the blankets over your shoulders. You want to feel rested, completely healed, and entirely restored 5 minutes after you close your eyes. And when the healing does not happen instantly, when your mind continues to race and your muscles continue to hold their tension, you panic. You feel like you have made a terrible investment. You feel like sleep is refusing to pay you back. But your biology operates on the exact same slow, inevitable mathematics as the board. Healing is not a fast transaction. Cellular repair is not an instant deposit. Restoring your depleted nervous system is a slow, steady return on investment. When you lie still, the dividends are being paid to you in microscopic increments. The rent you are collecting is tiny, a fraction of a degree drop in your core body temperature, a slow, incremental release of melatonin, a gradual, barely noticeable softening of the muscles in your jaw and your neck. Just like the light blue property, your body requires cycles. It requires the passage of time. You have to pass through the light stages of sleep, dipping into the deep, slow-wave delta sleep, and cycling back up into the rapid eye movement stage. You have to complete this circuit 4 or 5 times before the investment fully matures. You cannot drag your brain into deep sleep by force. You cannot manipulate the biological dice to make the healing happen faster. You can't accelerate the clearing of metabolic waste from your tissues just because you are feeling anxious. You simply have to wait. And there is a beautiful, heavy relief in accepting that you have to wait. When you realize that you cannot force the return, you are freed from the responsibility of trying. You do not have to work at falling asleep. You do not have to hustle for your rest. You have already made the investment. You have already paid the cost simply by lying down in the dark. The transaction is complete. Now the math is working in your favor. The probability is on your side. The systems inside your body are already calculating the return, slowly gathering the resources, slowly balancing the ledger of your energy. You can let go of the panic of being temporarily depleted. It is okay that you feel tired right now. It is okay that your mind is still unwinding. You are in the early stages of the cycle. You're in the quiet, empty space between spending your energy and getting it back. This space is necessary. This emptiness is required. The deficit is not a permanent state. It is just the beginning of the curve. Let the heavy, slow reality of time settle over you. You do not need to rush the math. You do not need to check the ledger. You do not need to ask if you are asleep yet. Every minute you lie here, perfectly still, breathing the cool air of the room, you are collecting the rent. The return is compounding. The biological debt of the day is being quietly, invisibly paid off. Sink into the patience of the board. Let the long, slow arc of the investment hold you. The numbers will balance. The energy will return. The healing is guaranteed by the laws of your own biology. All you have to do is absolutely nothing. Just breathe. Just wait. Just let the slow, perfect math of the night do exactly what it was designed to do.